This video is going to chronicle the restoration, or perhaps I should say rescue, of this 1871 little Wanzer lock stitch sewing machine. I say rescue because as she stands right now, she's completely non-functional. All of the artwork is long gone, her enamel finish is worn, chipped, and flaking away, and every surface is crusted in rust. And that's the good news. The bad news is that she's missing her needle and needle screw. There is no shuttle or bobbin, and neither of these are replaceable. But the real problem is that the needle head drive gear is broken. Let's move in for a closer look. The area of the gear collar that holds the set screw that secures the gear to the drive shaft is completely broken away, so that the gear rotates freely as the handle is turned without rotating the shaft. This gear can't be replaced. Combining the broken gear with the missing bobbin and shuttle, and the result is a machine that's a complete lost cause. Yet we're going to attempt rescuing her. The question is, why bother? The reason is that every year, dozens, if not hundreds, of similar machines end up in landfills, which means that every year there are fewer and fewer of these classic antique sewing machines left. Saving just one is a step toward reversing this process before they're completely gone. What we're going to attempt to do to return this machine to its beautiful, fully operational, original condition is to make from scratch a new bobbin and bobbin shuttle, replace all the missing parts, and somehow repair this broken gear. Once that's all done, we'll tackle restoring her finish. Hopefully, the techniques in this video will help others repair equally damaged machines, regardless of their make. Well, we've got a lot of work to do. Let's get started. After pulling the gear off of the machine, I took it to the local hardware store and browsed around for a metal tube with an inside diameter that slipped snugly around the remainder of the gear's collar. In this case, the perfect tube turned out to be a piece of pipe union. Hardware stores abound with tubes of all different sizes, so finding one to fit almost any gear shouldn't be a problem. Next, I'll cut a section out of the center of the union that's the same length as the gear collar. Then I'll drill and tap a hole for the set screw, slide the gear back on the shaft of the sewing machine, slide the collar patch over the gear collar, and fill the voids with JB weld. I found this stuff really works well. It's strong and it's very durable. Greasing the shaft and set screw will prevent the epoxy from sticking to them. And here's how it turned out. Fortunately, the gear was originally painted black, so when this is repainted, it'll be hard to tell it was patched because the metal tube didn't increase the collar's diameter enough to be noticeable. So that's the biggest problem taken care of. Next up, remaking a 147-year-old shuttle from scratch without any plans. Online research provided the basic shape and size of the shuttle, which I traced onto a piece of steel bar stock. I drilled out the cavity for the bobbin using a drill press, then finished the job with a cut-off disc on a Dremel tool. I roughed out the body with the same tool. A flap wheel turned out to be the best way to smooth the overall shape. After sanding with 400 and 600 grit emery paper, I polished it with 1500 to 12,000 micromesh polishing cloths, cut it loose from the bar, and finished the end. And here's how it turned out. Except for the use of mounting tape to provide the spring action to hold the bobbin in place, it looks like the real thing. The bobbin was an extra from another machine, cut down to fit the Wanzer's smaller size. The cloth plate and integral needle plate are a complete mess. There's rust and tarnish everywhere. The general surface texture is extremely rough. It feels like somebody took an angle grinder to try to clean this thing up. There are some deep grooves and some even deeper pits. So what we're going to have to do is degrease it, sand it down, fill it with a high loft primer, sand that down, and then we can get to re-enameling it with a good gloss black enamel. And here's what it looks like now. This took almost 2 weeks because there are many layers on this, and several of them Took 2 days before I could recoat them. Still, it came out pretty good, and when we get the decal on this, it'll be looking fantastic. 4 of the 5 wire pins that help hold the side plate to the main body were missing. I couldn't find any wire the right diameter to replace them with, which isn't surprising since the Wanzers were handmade long before wire standardization. The closest I could find was the wire handle on a small binder clip. These were still a little too large in diameter, so I cut off a straight section, chucked it into a drill, and then used a jeweler's file to grind it down to the right diameter so that it would provide a tight jam fit into the frame. This leaf spring, which holds the thread between 2 guide pins, was completely missing. I found pictures of what it's supposed to look like online, and with that and a small piece of springy stainless steel was able to cut a replacement, and it works quite well. The needle and its holding screw were both missing. Replacements can't be found, and modern needles are too large in diameter, so I took a Janome red needle and ground the shaft down using a Dremel tool with a flap wheel to almost half of its original diameter to get it to fit. For the screw, I found a modern bolt with the same threading, cut it to length, and then ground the head down to match online images of them. It fit great. One of the biggest jobs was using micro mesh cloths to polish all of the metal down to the smallest screw head to a mirror finish. This step alone took 10 hours. Because restorations often require removing gears, if they don't already have indexing marks, I highly recommend using a file to cut them into the gear and the frame, as well as the gear and its shaft. This can save hours trying to synchronize the needle and shuttle motions. After 3 hours of degreasing, sanding, more degreasing, a final cleaning and masking, the main body was ready for paint. I've gotten good results from Rustoleum's gloss black enamel. The main drive gear was painted separately. Now I have to wait 3 days for the paint to fully cure. While that's happening, I'll start working on the decals. And here they are. It may not look like it, but these took 12 hours to make. Most of the time went to drawing the detailed filigree and sizing each decal to fit the machine. They follow the ivy and tendril motif common for early Wanzers. Next, they have to be sprayed with clear gloss, backed with gold leaf, inverted, applied to the machine, and finally touched up with gold paint to cover any small defects. Figure another 5 to 6 hours. After that, the machine can be reassembled, oiled, the gears resynchronized, and it'll be done. Here we are back at the beginning, with a machine that was rusted, broken, missing critical parts, gears out of synchronization, artwork completely missing, and paint virtually destroyed. And here's how she looks now. A machine of such elegance and beauty that she's topped both the Wilcox Gibbs and Jones Swanneck as our favorite machine. Rust had not only stained the white marble base to the point where it couldn't be restored, but also etched it with deep pits, so we had to replace it. The green is nice because it helps bring out the glow of the 24-karat gold leaf artwork. We particularly like the hand-drawn filigree on the cloth plate and on the main drive wheel. Best of all, she not only looks great, but probably for the first time in decades, she also sews great. So, that's how this 147-year-old little Wanzer, who we've named Tilly May, came out of a restoration that took well over 120 hours. She looks so good that we can't walk by without stopping and staring with wonder and gratitude that we're lucky enough to have her in our collection. One of the things that's always puzzled me is why I find little Wanzer so attractive. While setting up the final shots for this video, I finally figured it out. If you study her shape, you'll discover she's made completely out of circles. The drive wheel is a circle, as are the base, main frame, cloth plate, and needle plate. Even the side plate on the head was designed with bulges and engraving to reflect this circular theme. I believe it's this constancy of circular design elements that blend into a harmonious form that simply feels natural to look at. If you'd like to see the rest of the machines in our modest but growing collection, please visit my main website at waynesthisandthat.com. Next up, we're restoring an 1888 front crank Bisultan lock sewing machine. This is going to be a difficult challenge because she's in even worse condition than the Wanzer was. As always, thank you very much for watching.